tell you. I had a boy.
Oh, now you gonna preach to me, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna preach. And you gonna listen!
Oh man, yo, check this out. So we back for another boring installment in this part of YouTube known as, BlackTube, known as the boring sector, because here it's going to be low and slow, and it's going to get those those levels up for that melatonin in your life to put you smooth asleep. That's what's going to happen. And I'm here to do it, and I got a handful of sleeping pills just to do the job. And you know me, I'm Mr. Impromptu. Just decided I was doing some laundry and said, you know what? This will be a good time to go live with no warning, no preparation, no subject matter, no title. Just sign on there and let it rip. So here we go. How I sound? You know, hopefully I'm coming across loud and clear. According to my monitor system here, I'm doing okay with that. Yo, check this out. Again, didn't really plan nothing, man. But you know, something did come front of mind. And that is this, because I hear a lot of chatter on BlackTube. A lot of us is on here, yiggity yak, you know, gossip, rumors, whatever we do, back and forth, engaging. And I try to associate more with the adult crowds these days. But it seems like it's a lot of the same stuff there too. But yo, now in my city, we got a problem. The youth, that's right, I said youth. Y-O-U, no, actually, Y-E-W-F, the youth is out of control. Now, I talked about this in the past, right? Now, a lot of us, you know, we talk about the young people, what they're doing. The murder rates is up. There was some 4 people shot this weekend, then 2 more people shot. You know, I talked about this in the past. You know, the young men, they seem to not have a code anymore. Now, y'all know my normal way of looking at things is, oh, welcome, Mo. Oh, Miss Mo, baby mama here. Thank you. So my normal way of dealing with things is simple as far as I always say, well, this is because that is. Like, the reason why this is happening is because of A, B, and C, and we go down the line. Look, while that might make me sleep a little better at night, you know, figuring out the whole universal order of the cosmos and looking insightfully to figure out why all the atoms and molecules and subatomic particles have aligned themselves in a certain way to bring about these present conditions, it still don't change things. It still don't make me feel any safer, you know, running around the streets. And I can talk about a lot of reasons why, you know, we have this problem. But I decided to pull up some statistics, you know, because I was reading the article, and I'm going to quote, and said, youth violence refers to violence that occurs among individuals aged 10 to 29. Wow, 29 years old is youth? Okay, I learned something new today. Who are unrelated and who may or may not know each other. It generally takes place outside of the home. It includes a range of acts from bullying, both offline, online, physical fighting, to more severe sexual and physical assault, gang-related violence, or homicide. Youth violence results in deaths, injuries, disability, long-term health consequences, including mental health problems and increased health risk behaviors, which can lead to chronic diseases. It is much associated with the high rates of school dropouts. There we go. Negative impacts on cognitive development and opportunities to contribute to their communities. Yo, now, is it me or things just got progressively bad over time? Now, y'all hear me talk about back in the day, when I was in school, it was this. When I was here young, it was that. Now I understand, I've said many a times, nothing remains the same except for change. So I understand things change, but geez, it looks like it's just getting worse and worse and worse. My question is, what's causing it? Why is it that death, violence, these things, is this negativity, this evil that persists, seems to just keep growing and growing and growing? What's causing it? What's fueling it? Why is it okay? Who's benefiting from things being this way? Now, y'all hear me talk a lot about music because I'm into music. Like, I'm like, why is all the music slanted one direction? Why is it all negativity? Why is it that female artists have to be like strippers first, before they can get on? You hear me saying it's almost like somebody's pushing the button just to make it more negative, and I'm pretty sure if we look behind, trace the money, somebody's getting very rich off these things. Now, I've heard other sides of the argument where people say, well, it don't matter what the music is. That ain't got nothing to do with you and how you raise your kids. That has nothing to do with any of that. Well, I agree. I didn't have certain things in my house raising mine, and they ended up okay for the most part. Welcome, Riri. Welcome. Oh my God, the goddess has stopped by. That's right. The Yellow Rose of Texas. Welcome, and welcome to the Sunny Bunny TT for joining me. I know this is right up your alley. But yeah, so anyway, y'all got to forgive me. I like giving out the salutations, but then y'all know I got old timers disease, so I lose my train of thought real easy like. But yeah, so again, I don't like to talk about like what I did. Like I'm not them people to say, well, it ain't my kids and it's not me and I did all right with mine, because it don't matter, because it doesn't matter how good I do with my kids, or it doesn't matter how I did good with myself. It just means, if I walk out that front door, one of the, like I told y'all before, I've said on other lives, you walk out that front door, it's not your kids you got to worry about. It's the other kids, the little boy that didn't get the attention, the little girl that nobody never gave a hug to, that is now adopted this murder, death, kill culture. And now he and she becomes your problem when you at the ATM with your back turned. Yo, who designed the ATM that way? Why this thing don't have like a lock box or something and a call, or emergency call button, because I have never thought in my life, like, why would somebody design something? Let me see. Let me put a device in the wall so I'm completely facing away from public. I can't see behind me. Yo, they could have at least put some rear view mirrors in it or something. It's just like, and I'm pulling out all this money. And then when I turn around, I just pray ain't nobody standing behind me with a gun, knife, or a heavy ass rock. You know what I mean? So, but the point is, me, I got a clown too. The point is that, these things exist. I every weekend I go, man, I hope none of these young people don't kill each other. I hope, I one time I asked the question, I said, what's fueling it? What's fueling their anger? Like, why are they so quick to shoot each other? Like, what's causing it? What I found out in my little bit of research, yeah, sometimes I decided to ask some young people, is that a lot of it is personal beefs, and a lot of it is over like petty stuff, like girls, sneakers, like little, you insulted me. And it seems at the end of the day, it's coming down to, welcome YTU, it's coming down to these young people do not know how to express their emotions. It's like they're very super sensitive. And this thing, when they're hurt, it wells up inside of them in a way that it comes out in a very violent exchange. I don't know why that is. Again, I'm also here to be educated. I consider T.M.K a solutions-based platform, but I also am here to be educated to anybody else's thoughts on things as to why it is the way it is. Now, my kids are pretty much millennials, so I don't know what's the next generation, y'all. Gen Z, Gen Y, whatever comes after them. I'm not too familiar with those folks, which would be more like my grandkids. But I just don't know. I mean, did we do this? Did we do this by educating them a certain way? Like I noticed, I talked about this. I've asked people who are in the classrooms, how did you get from me getting my hand smacked with a ruler for just even looking the wrong way into a child standing up on the desk throwing a full-on tantrum and slamming a computer monitor, and everybody's like, yo, we gotta calm down. Now, Gerald, I want you to, Gerald, talk to me. You know, how do we get to that? Now, my personal opinion is it's all about the money. You know, because we keep saying in our city, they're trying to come out with a law now that will allow the, law enforcement to be able to charge these juveniles for what they're doing. But I always said to myself, I said, nah, it's almost like they want to keep these young people on the plantation. Like they're on the school rolls, which means the school is getting money. You know, they got an excuse to get more tax revenue. So they just let the kids do what they want to do. Lorna Doon Williams, welcome. They can just simply keep this money flowing, and the kids will suffer. Well, people say, well, if they're not in school, eventually, how is that a plan? Well, they go from school to the prison, and then once you're inside of the prison, you're now, for the low price of 18 cents an hour, you are making products that are being sold for profit, and prisons themselves are traded on the stock exchange. And they are for-profit entities, privately owned. So it seems like there's a motive for all of this, Now, a lot of times we come together as people and we talk about the problems. We like I just did for the last 10 minutes. Just this is the problem. This is what's happening. This is what's going on, and such and so on and so forth. Sometimes we even dare step into the realm of, what can we do about it? Once we get to what we can do about it, we revert back to, well, mine are okay, which does not resolve the issue. It just perpetrates more of what's happening. Well, not perpetrates, but it simply does not thwart or curb what's going on. Now, maybe in the town where you live, you don't experience this. I don't know. All I know is it's a lot of guns on the street. It's a lot of youth out here that are not getting the resources that they need to get, and it's coming to a head, from where I'm standing. Now, in that same article, right, they was talking, and I like to read the articles and just kind of paraphrase for myself. Like I said, scope of the problem worldwide, you got 193,000 homicides occurring between these people, 15 to 29 years of age, right? Each year. So that's the death of people in that one age group. Now, we ain't even talking about adults, right? So the variation is dramatically different between countries. I'm more so focusing on the US, So you have these things. It's almost like, I remember like the elders telling me, saying, it's the end of days. It's the end of days. They've been saying it's the end of days since I don't know, man, for the last 500, 600, 1,000 years. You know what I'm saying? Right now, I'm going to join the crowd and say, if there's something called the end of days, this definitely looks like it, because there is no respect. There are no guidelines. There are no deterrence. There's no threats for anybody to like kind of do better. And we've kind of failed the children, and I say that because once the classroom transferred into a place of where now they went from growing up in my entire school, I had two kids that might have been special needs. Now they treat them all like 90% of them like they're special needs, and they need medication, and they're just hyper. And these things, some of these things are true, that's leading the cause to this. You know what I'm saying? So they say the kids have things like attention deficit, hyperactivity, conduct disorder, other behavioral disorders, early involvement with alcohol, drugs, and tobacco. Let's stop and talk about that for a second. How many of y'all people in Gen X raise your children, and to not deal with them, you kind of put the Barney tape on and just let them go for theirs for several hours. Or you might have been playing Friday Part 1 over and over, you know, whatever you did to distract them so you didn't have to put up with them. Well, see, I'm going to take the L on that for our generation for perpetrating that, because technology came. Now, when we was growing up, in my generation, there was no technology. We had a television set and 3 channels. You were not glued to that TV. There was one television, which means the parents controlled it. So if they're watching Dynasty or if they're watching Little House on the Prairie, you probably was not hanging out, because as a kid, you was forced to do things, to go outside, to deal with nature, understand how that works. You were physically fit because you ripped and run. You drank a lot of water. You kept it moving, fixed your bike. You was good with your hands. I think that technology is the gift and the curse that started this. Like I said, we came into the videotapes and then into the DVDs, and we noticed when we expose our kids to these things that they would be quiet. They would shut up. They would be out of your face, right? But see, the thing is, I don't think that's the right thing. Now, the generation I see now, including my own family and on, all these little kids got these iPads, which keeps them quiet. It keeps them distracted. Well, I'm no scientist, but I don't know what a lot of flashing colors and rapid changing images does to a young child's brain, because I've seen it where when you pull these devices from these kids, they go into full-on tantrums. See, the thing is, it's the same thing with your cell phone that you keep looking at. You're probably peeking at it right now. It's give you a release of endorphins every time you scroll. Like, you know, you scroll down, you see your favorite content creator doing their things and such, you know. Oh, let me pause for a second here. So just a comment. So Riri said, taught my kids how to write cursive. They don't teach it now. No doubt. And also taught my kids how to read a clock, the analog clock. You know what I mean? We have those in the house. So I think that a lot of it is the technology, you know, because we've kind of passed on that to the kids, as far as like these devices are convenient, and a child can find themselves being occupied for like 6 years with technology. You know, you put them in that room, it could be the sun up. If you got the right tool devices in there, they could be in there all day. They might get hungry at some point, you know, but I think we've kind of detached, you know, from them as parents, and we've kind of unplugged them from nature, you know. So I'm sorry, y'all, I was just sending a text. You know how it is. So I think we've unplugged, and then we've, with these devices, it has opened up a whole world to them. Like, in other words, there's a lot of trouble you can get into as a young man on a computer. You know what I mean? Where I didn't have that as a young man. You know, we had to go find the magazines, or we had to peek, you know, or try to look at the Super TV on the Scramble channel to try to do what you could do to get into trouble, you know. But nowadays, kids have a lot more access to information, you know, and these tools and devices, the video games. So I had video games, but like I said, it was things that were limited. You know, in my household, raising these kids, it was your homework was first. Then you had to make sure your area was clean, which, trust me, the studying took so much. You know, you might not have had much time for that. Then it was eating and then getting ready for bed, you know, a little bit of recreation. And then you go ahead on the bed and get up and do it all over again. The formula worked. Now, they weren't all straight A students, and they didn't all start life the way I wanted them to. But hey, I could see the difference. You know, I think our moms and dads, Gen Xers, I think the moms and dads before us, the boomers, I think they had it right. Well, it was issues with us too, but I think they had it right. You know, so what are the causes, you know, of these things? And I'm gonna drop the link too, because I know some of y'all, you know, folks might have a little bit on your mind, like, hey, I got some ideas as to why, or maybe you could share your experiences on these things, you know. They go a yawn. Guess what? I didn't get a nap in the day. I should have. I was doing appointments all day, y'all. New doctor. I'm gonna talk about that too. New doctor, you know, new insurance. This man decided he wanted to send me to give me 8 different referrals. I'm not used to this, y'all. but I was running appointments all day, and these people put some drops in my eyes. Lord, I thought they could just shine a light and you go. I never had them dilate pupils, man. My head is banging. Like I got out in that sun because I would have been like, hey, don't I need a ride home? You should have seen me driving. I thought I was on Venus, you know, how bright it was. But yo, check it. So they said that the risk factors, right? Family, friends, intimate partners, and peers, poor monitoring. Oh, my fault. I'm sorry. I did I get all of the risk factors with the individual? Yeah. So we talked about behavioral disorders, early involvement with alcohol, drugs, and tobacco. Once again, growing up, Gen X, it was a different experience. Sometimes the parents would have the little party. They didn't have you kids around, you know, and then sometimes you just get the little baby, a little sip of beer. It don't hurt them. No, don't get a baby no beer. But they did that to us. I never had the beer, y'all, but I've seen it, you know. Low intelligence and educational achievement. You know, everybody's getting a trophy. Do better next time. We're going to take the passing grade from a C down to a D. You know what I mean? So these things are factors. Involvement in crime, unemployment, exposure to violence in the family. Well, I don't know about that one. I mean, we've seen in Gen X, we've seen some knockdown dragouts in the household. That's been going on since the beginning of time. But as far as close relationships, poor monitoring and supervision of children by parents. Once again, you out here, you're on the pad. I'm not watching what you're searching. I don't know what you're looking up. You have no idea what your daughter, your son is in there. He's got a whole chemistry set trying to figure out how to make a synthetic form of weed. You wouldn't know. But that's another thing. You know, our parents, how many of y'all was raised in a house where the door couldn't be closed? Now, I've done that part of the way. You know, the younger kids, we let them close the door. I already knew. See, I already had all the parental controls on your devices, and I controlled your devices. So it's nothing you was going to do in that room that I wasn't going to know about. Trust me. And they all knew this guy got the keystrokers installed. He's monitoring us. He knows the websites we going to. So, but, you know, it takes a lot more surveillance, you know, if you're going to let him close the door. We was not able to close the door. Matter of fact, my mom took my door off the hinges. That's what happens when you close it just a little bit too hard, you know, and you sucking your teeth. And, you know, as she worded it, you lucky I ain't sail you through the door. You know what I'm saying? But not saying that's the right way, y'all. Don't be violent with the kids, but hey, it happens. But monitoring, supervision, you know, talking to these kids, harsh, lax, or inconsistent parental disciplinary practices, you know, you punish them, but they not punished. Wait a minute, I don't get it. Go to your room, but you get to play with your video game. I'm not understanding that. Like, you know, what are we doing? Low level of attachment between parents and children. Or I've seen a lot of us in Gen X is trying to live vicariously through our children. This my mini me. No, it's not your mini you. Your mini me can wear those shorts, but your big ass cannot wear those shorts. Take them off. You the parent. I can look at you. If I look at you in a picture and I can't tell who's who, don't get me wrong. I understand if you look young, that's great. I look young. You can look young, but don't look young. You know what I'm saying? So I can't tell the generations apart. You know, low parental involvement in children's activities. You know, we come on, as us a family, we went bowling, we went to the carnival, we went to the water park, we went to the library, we went to the festival, we went to the fair, we went to these things. We are, these kids now are growing up, they have like, it's a complete life. It's almost like they're young adults on their own, independent. They're there for you. I don't know. I guess you pay them rent. It keeps the roof over their head, you know? And then, of course, you know, parental substance abuse or criminality. Yeah, see, that was us. A lot of us, we did come up in the gangsterism of things, you know? Some of our music was very, very negative. We came up in it. You try and be hardcore. You thorough. You know, all this. It's almost like we had that Peter Pan syndrome where we ain't growing up and our kids looking at us like, damn, you still acting like, you know, like you in your teens. And I'm looking to you for the example. Parental depression. A lot of us suffer from things, you know, mental disorders. Hopefully, if you're dealing with them, hopefully you got a strong partner, you know, and then there's low family income. Now, I think we were the last generation of people that could get out of high school and fill out an application and get a halfway decent job. I think we was the last of the Mohicans. And when I say Gen X, I'm talking about y'all. I came out the pipe in the 60s. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm speaking to y'all, raised in the 70s. You know, if you hear me, you know what I'm saying? So low family income. I don't know about that one, because I mean, we grew up poor. We wasn't even poor. We were poor. Like, we couldn't afford the O and the R. That's what I'm saying. Poor. But here's the thing. I didn't know the difference. I didn't know we was poor. You know what I'm saying? Mom made it work. Like I told y'all in the past, hats off to the queen. You know, had every Easter, every Christmas, birthday, 4th of July. I mean, I don't know how she did it, but she did it. But we were still poor. You know what I mean? Because as far as I'm concerned, you was either poor or rich. And ain't nobody rich where I lived at. You know what I'm saying? Unemployment in the family. That could be a societal thing. You know what I mean? Dad laid off. He's working at GM 1 minute, 1973. He's pulling in $12 an hour, which is like incredible. You know what I mean? But then all of a sudden, boom, he laid off for 3 months. So hopefully you was good with them finances, because if not, that created an issue. I don't even think the GM plan is even here anymore. Associating with delinquent peers and or gangs, memberships like that. Where I was from, we didn't have organized gangs, but we did have enough high supply knuckleheads you could deal with in the street. So that's that. But then if you got a strong parental unit, you're not really worried about individuals in the street. You know what I'm saying? I mean, come on, I ain't gonna lie. I was trying to fake the funk, but I couldn't get it together. I ain't no street dude. I know a lot of people say that and they speak on it and they say they're a street dude. I don't know, or they say street ninja. Welcome. Oh man, Fufu Murphy is here. Welcome. I don't know what a street ninja is. I guess, is it somebody that is in the street making a money in the street? I don't know. One day, one of y'all break that down for me. I mean, I was out in the street, but I don't know what that means. You know, if it has to do with finance or money, let me know. So yeah, it's a lot of factors that create these things. Now, us coming up as Gen Xers, you know, I mean, come on, it was a lot of opportunities for food stamps, Section 8 housing, all these things, which to me never solves the problem. You know what I mean? I don't think it solved the problem since its inception in the early 60s. As far as I could get it, you know, sometimes you in between jobs, you need a little help, but it should be something temporary. It should not be something that makes a 14-year-old girl feel like, well, I can have this baby. I ain't got to worry because it's going to be taken care of. Man, newsflash, you go to Panama, you know, Nicaragua, places like that, you know what I'm saying? There is no social services. If you're a 14-year-old, you're going to step real lightly when it comes to having a baby. What boring sector business? Hey, I got Raw. She is Raw G now. Hey, one day Raw going to break that down and explain to me when she went from the B to the G. You know what I mean? She going to break that down. But yeah, it wasn't no situation. And shout out to the sisters that came up in it. You know, you might have had a child young. It's all good. You know what I mean? My mama had us young, but you know what I mean? Like last day of high school young. But it happens, and that's cool. You know what I mean? But we definitely got to get to a point where we you know, we don't want that as a crutch. Now, you know, you got these people in power talking about just cutting it off. And that was always my biggest fear. I'm like, sister, you get used to this thing, or brother. Because yeah, I know can't have a pregnant young girl without the young man. But back in the day, like I told you, my mom, I said last day of high school, there was a shotgun involved with that marriage. But we ain't gonna talk. We ain't gonna talk about that. But notice, if you was dating one of my daughters, you definitely, you can roll up in here if you want to talk about she's 17 and Mr. Bombay, I got to talk to you. First of all, that's Dr. Bombay. I didn't go to 8 years of goddamn YouTube school to be called Mr. So let's get that right. Yeah, me and Shakisha, we love each other. Man, get to the point. She pregnant. Okay, well, let's go downtown. Let's get these papers. Let's do it. Now, my firstborn, she already knew. I ain't had to get the shotgun. She was 18. She already knew. She had the shotgun loaded. and guess what? Still married to this day. 5 kids later, still married. And they still together. You know, because the young man knew. Hey, he's a good dude. You know what I'm saying? Good dude, hardworking man. Federal contractor. doing this thing. Welcome to the stage. Y'all know her as the Vesta Virgin, aka Miss Vest herself, aka Habeas Corpus Vestus, Miss Esquire Stephanie Collins. Welcome to the stage, Steph.
That baby don't look like me. That baby don't look like me.
No
I
doubt.
don't know. I don't know how what they're talking about, but that baby don't look like me. No.
Feed it till it look like you. That's what the judge used to say in the 60s. Wasn't no DNA. Feed it
That's
till it
right.
look like you. Because
That's
all you had to
right.
do was hear that girl's story. I was only with him. And there it is. Feed it till it look
That's
like you.
right.
Boom. Young man, you got 2 weeks to get a job. End of the story. And in them days, it wasn't that hard to get a job. So ain't trying to hear that.
There was a lot more opportunity for younger people. Now it's like every job, even entry level jobs, you have to have a master's degree and 5 years of experience. How are you going to get the 5 years of experience if you're applying for an entry level job? I don't know, but that they love to put that on the applications to make it make sense. But no, I wanted to push back a little bit on what you're saying, just a little bit,
I knew you was. I knew you was. You wouldn't be you if you didn't. That's why you're a Capricorn. So go ahead, push. Ram.
I'm not actually. I'm not. But I don't believe in any of that shit anyway. But okay,
Neither.
so you're talking about how kids these days, are spending a lot more time by themselves or the company of other children.
Mm-hmm.
And the family used to participate in activities together. And that's how my family was, right? In the 80s and the 70s. I think a lot more families were like that. But let's go back to our grandparents' generation, the so-called greatest generation.
Mm-hmm.
Our I don't know if your grandfather was like my grandfather. My grandfather did not spend hardly any time with his children. He wasn't supposed to. He didn't. It wasn't, a father's thing to do to spend. He was the disciplinarian and he was the provider, and that was
Yes,
basically it.
that was it.
The times my dad spent with his father, they were working together because my grandfather was an electrician, and he trained my father to be an electrician by making him work with him side by side, and on wire the house, whatever they were doing that day. And so that was how my grandfather imparted all the wisdom of raising him to be a man. It was through working side by side with him, making him work, even when he didn't want to. And it wasn't any of these sort of, I mean, I can't even imagine my grandfather being at a water park. They did go to the bowling alley together, but that was also in the 60s when the bowling alley was not family fun time. That was not that didn't come about to the 90s. I don't think. I don't think bowling alleys were places of family, fun time until probably I was in high school. But that was just sort of a thing that like our older the the greatest generation of the generations preceding them, there was no sort of family unit that did activities together. They might sit down and eat at night together, but that would pretty much be it. Then you didn't really see your father for the rest of the day.
Nope. I just found out, like my grandfather, they said, yeah, they said granddad had 3 jobs. I was like, damn, well, when was he home?
Right.
I saw him
Right.
on maybe one part of a weekend night. They were playing cards. That was it.
Right.
I never saw him there. But my uncles and aunts were just recently telling me what it was like growing up. And they said this man was a steel driving man. He constantly worked. I mean, come on, you got 10 children living in the city. I mean, you got a stay-at-home wife. You definitely got to be getting your hustle on.
So
So
in Fort Smith, when my dad was in the house with his parents, his dad was the only support for his wife, their 3 children, his stepdaughter, my dad's half sister, her 3 kids, her full brother, my dad's half brother, who was not my grandfather's. He was my grandfather's stepson. His kids, his 2 kids, and A lot of times my grandmother had a bunch of brothers who were all drunks, so they'd always need places to crash too. So sometimes there'd be 20 of them in the house and only two bedrooms. They'd be sleeping on the
Mm,
floor. They'd be sleeping in the hallway. Yeah, and it was always a constant rotation. But when they were all in there together, because they all of them had nowhere else to go, yeah, it was busted at the seams, and somehow, they were he worked so much to just keep that whole organization running. I mean, they had a what do you call it? They had a football team. They had a sports team. They had the first division of the army. Was living under that roof, and so
yeah.
it was. And so he had no time, and he didn't think that was his role anyway. It was up to his wife to you know
I and speaking of those uncles
put the
and
iodine on and
aunts
all that
that
shit.
oh, you must have went out. I think you went out for a second.
I did a little bit.
Oh,
Yeah.
speaking of
Go ahead.
those aunts and uncles, by the way, y'all, if y'all trying to figure out who those extra ones that never, some of you might even have those the uncle or two or aunt that never left home. They were just there, like they never started a life. They were the same ones that after Nana and Pat paid off the house and lived there in their retirement and went on to glory. Those were the ones that couldn't find that $800 a year for property tax and sit there and let your granddad's house
Yes.
get taken by the
Yes.
state or the county. Yes. And then you cry about generational wealth and where it is. Well, it's called, you don't pay property tax. Some law firm buys the house for like $5,000, rehabs it and sells it. So
Yeah.
miss me with that. Which takes me to a question for you in the next part of the topic. So let me ask you, right? I tend to look at social media as a microcosm of what's out in the real world. Now
Hmm.
there are a lot of, and I know it's also unfair to say that because there's a certain group of people that are on here. And then some people, there are intellects on here. There are professionals. There are doctors and things and people with information. But when I listen to, I'm talking about BlackTube. When I listen to a lot of BlackTube, about 98.764% is a lot of negativity. And I'm wondering, when I talk about the kids and the issues and them, is it us here, that's a part of that problem? Like if I'm being half a century years old, if I'm still here and I'm turning up, I'm acting wild, acting crazy and doing all the things, is it fair to say that we are part of those issues with these kids because we're fueling it too? Or is it safe to say that we're a part of that problem?
Hmm.
Mm.
I'm
And
thinking.
go ahead. And
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, and if not, if we are these, because I know, and don't get me wrong, some of this stuff is rhetorical. I know that when the 98.467% of us come here to engage in negativity, and then yet we also say, well, I'm just doing this here, but in my real life, I
Right.
got a Ferrari and I got two Cadillacs and a Lincoln truck. And I have a big old, $600,000 house, which is a guest house on $1 million property. And I go to church 3 nights a week. But when I'm here, oh, this is a different person. And I start to wonder. I'm like, when I go to have discussions like this, like, man, who am I talking to? You know, are we still engaging? Now, I'm gonna answer the question for myself, and I'm gonna say, yeah, we part of the problem. Because if I come on here and I spew a bunch of negativity and if I'm showing my own grandkids a horrible ass example of what an elder should do, I'm going to say I'm part of the problem. I'm not going to sit here and blame some rapper. I don't know none of these young rappers' names, but I'm not going to blame no little this or
Baby
this, that,
that.
and the other one. Yeah, baby that.
Baby
I'm not going to
somebody.
blame
Yeah.
say they're the problem, but me, I'm 50 something or whatever, damn near 60, some of us, me too, that, or what I'm doing here is not a part of the issue. I'm going to say my answer to the question is yes, it is. Yes, it is part of the issue. And I hold myself accountable for that. So that's why on a personal level, I decided to change up my rhetoric a little bit, going from wallowing in it to turning it into satire to now we are in the boring sector with nothing but this boring ass commentary, and that's where we at with it. And I do believe there's a balance. You can still have your fun too, but there's a balance. I'm gonna keep using that B word to the day I die, because that's all I ever been talking about when I've been on here. But you go ahead. What are your thoughts?
So, is it specific to social media to set a bad example for the younger generations? I mean, I think we've been doing that for an awful long time, right? It's like I go back to the bowling alley, where my dad and my grandfather took my. Actually, I don't know who went first. If my dad went to the bowling alley when he was a teenager first, or if my grandfather was already bowling there, or if it was or if dad started going and then my grandfather started bowling there. I don't know, but it was a sorted place, right? And so, but it was multi-generational. There were people there in their 80s that were bowling, and then there were people that were teenagers like my dad, right, and his friends, and they all acted bad together, essentially, because there'd be fights and drinking, and everybody was having affairs and babies, with somebody else's wife, and all this shit was going on at the bowling alley because again, it's a sorted place, right? And they all knew each other from church too, because they were all Southern Baptist as well, right? And that's just how it is in the South a lot of times. But yeah, it was like, and then I was thinking myself too, like I used to, when I was drinking, a lot of times I drink with people that were double my age, and I just think like, I don't think it's specific to social media. I think there's always been places where there's been opportunities for, people of all ages to get together and fuck up.
Word. I I noticed something. I made a joke. I made a comment in the room the other day. I was somewhere and I said, man, I did a live and I lost 2. Every time I go live, I lose 1 or 2 subs. And I said, that means I'm doing it right. Now, why I made a comment, because Yolanda is very good at dissecting my commentary. She says, I don't think it's a black thing as far as YouTube goes, because all races participate in online negativity. I like your broader question, though. Yeah, but I did specifically point out, I said black tube, meaning the group of black folks that's on YouTube that engage in the pure effery is who I was referring to with that. And I said, what responsibility do we have? But I have to also not get caught up in the illusion of believing that black tube is the whole world. This is only a sector of society. You know what I mean? I'm gonna leave it there with that. This is not, if I was to look at all 14 million black folks, it's not the majority of us that are here. It's just, it's a small segment of society that will engage in the, I'm going to yell at you obscenities. I'm going to talk about your family. I'm going to try to make you feel bad. I'm going to talk about your looks. I'm going to drag you. I'm going to do I'm going to take you to the brink of self-annihilation and publicly humiliate you, dox you, put your information out. Anything that you can think of negative that you can add to that, I'm going to do to you. I don't think it's the majority of all of us in society. So, but that's the thing. That's what the media does, and that takes me back to the original point. The media, the movies they put out, like I look at my Tubi, I look at these apps on the streaming services, and it's just like all the same type movies. I'm like, oh my Lord, or the music, like I said earlier, they only want the more controversial, the more negative it is. I was saying the other day, I said, damn, I was listening to some Tony Braxton. I said, what happened to the love songs? Where are these love songs? Where's the turn out the lights and the mystery and all of that's going on with the romance? It's like they're not pushing that anymore, because it's not, I don't know if it's not selling, but these concerts are still happening. So anyway,
right.
That's just my thought on that.
I don't like that mushy romantic music because, I don't care what people do in their bedrooms, but I don't know why y'all straight people have to put it in my face like that. I don't appreciate it. It's
Yeah, no,
okay to be straight, but I don't want to. I don't want to hear about it.
yeah, you don't want to. You don't have to be forced to look at that all the time.
Right.
You
Exactly.
know, you don't want to be look at that. Look, let's make a change. Facts, YM.
And,
Yeah,
and I
they
wonder. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
go ahead, go ahead.
Well, I wonder, like, if you know how like I don't know if you ever did this, but when you get the fortune cookie at the Chinese restaurant, you're supposed to add in bed, to whatever the fortune says.
Hilarious.
Um, I wonder if we could like qualify everything you just said with like the majority of people don't do this, and everything you said online, right? Because I think like there is a certain segment or online and to people they've never met in person, the people they've never been in proximity to, right? Like I think there's still a lot of fuckery that goes on in quote unquote real life. It's not happening here, but it's people that are doing it to their neighbors. It's people that are doing it to, their coworkers. I mean, there is a certain type of personality, a certain type of person that's going to terrorize, right? I mean, not in the dictionary sense of the word, but they are going to make themselves a nuisance to somebody else, right? They're going to try to make somebody else miserable. And I don't think that has to be necessarily specific to online, even if it's just down to gossiping about people. We all grew up with the neighborhood gossip, right? And basically,
Yeah,
she's doing what we kind of do here, to a certain extent, except you don't have to dox their address because they live in your neighborhood, right? So,
exactly. But see, that goes back to that technology again. I said
right,
we now have the technology. Like I said, a child can, instead of bullying 2 kids in school, can now bully, 50 of them at once. Or
right,
50 kids can all bully. They do it as a group.
right.
Here we can gossip about dozens of people, where in the
All at once.
neighborhood, your mom had to call on the phone down the street, or she had to catch the lady out hanging her laundry and they
Right.
would talk,
Yeah,
but your mom couldn't reach, 100 people at once,
right.
you know.
Right.
Um,
And and they couldn't put your name in the title of video that says you're a part of a domestic heinous domestic organization. And then, leave it for everybody who Googles your name to find. They couldn't do that in the neighborhood. They couldn't do that. That's a different
no,
thing. Yeah.
we and we get a lot of pushback with this type of commentary. Again, I'm not even focused on the pushback. As far as, or we say lack of participation. But see, what I used to do on these lives back in the day was just what I'm doing now. And I would typically roll at about 11 people. But I noticed something when I changed the content. Um, the few people that would be from cross sections of YouTube disappeared. So I'm like, nah, let's go back to my normal conversation. This is how I would talk to you if I was talking to you on the phone. Let's go back to that, and just do what it do. It's okay. And don't get me wrong, I still will, drop something, a song, something funny. Clark, hey, Mademoiselle Clark is here. Welcome. I'll still drop that, But I feel like if you got a channel, you got to make up your mind what you want to do with that, and just the message you want to put out. I personally could not find a niche that I was comfortable enough in that I just wanted to do. Some people say, oh, well, the music, this and that. Okay, yeah, but after a while, you just burn out. I have a lot more to say than the narrative of the week in song. I want to do more than that, so
Right.
I like this better, and it's okay. And besides, if I'm gonna do music, let's start doing some real music. How about some of that R&B I said I miss? How about some of that? How about some of that? Light the candles and close the curtains, and then you got to use your mind to imagine what's going to happen next. Which
Hey,
in
you can
music
write a
we don't
song.
have it.
You can write a song for me and Brit. You can write a song for me and Brit.
Oh yeah, no doubt. You and Brittany, yup, no doubt. Y'all don't know, me and Steph, we went to school together, and Brittany was my girlfriend, and I went to the store because Brittany said she wanted some butter pecan. That was her favorite. And, when I came back, Steph's room door was locked and Brittany was apparently gone. So I thought, but we're not going to bring up painful memories. Oh, looks like we have, this may be Mike. I don't know.
Yes.
It could be. So yeah, man. A
What
couple
it
of
do,
little
Mike?
house things here.
Well,
It's
chilling. I just been busy trying to make things happen. Lucky, I had to gamble with something, but lucky I got my money back.
cool.
So,
So yeah, so welcome
uh,
to one of the this is one of the apartments in the boring building over here. So over here,
mm,
basically, Mike, it's we don't do like any specific sector stuff, name drops, personal people, in bombs. Like we don't do this is like boring, slow, type of deal. Cause we have like 480 gabillion channels that do all of that. So over here it's just a bit of you know,
so
a
let me
change.
can I pick your brain? Can I pick both
Sure.
of y'all brains?
That sounds
So
kind of Hannibal Lecterish, but go ahead. I'm having a friend for dinner. Go ahead.
that's good. Hey, so what you think about what's going on with the state? What's going on with like right now?
New York,
Nah, just in general.
the
What you
state.
think? Yeah.
I keep
Ba-
forgetting you're the king of generalities. Can you narrow it down? The state.
basically, what's going on with the war? Like, what you think about that?
The war. I'm about to say state. I'm like, okay, state of what? Gluon and other subatomic particles of spin 2? Are we talking physics or
Nah,
well, I mean, it
what's going on with the world? You know what I
oh,
mean?
that is it's a pretty big place. I mean, this war situation is exactly what it is. One country ordered us to go and they went. Now, so it
Mm,
serves a dual purpose. It gives one country to attack another one by proxy, which means they get a war at a discount. And then the
mm.
war also provides a distraction for the current administration away from these files that we just don't want to talk about. So that's what
That
this
is
does.
true.
Unfortunately, I feel that this tactic is not only futile, that it won't
Mm,
change anything. And now that country, Iran, is not backing down. They're like, oh, no. What you thought? You was going to drop a bomb? You killed my dad. Now Junior's in charge, and he's like 10 times worse than daddy was.
mm,
So these people, they not
mm.
playing. They not playing. They talking about inflicting some serious damage. So see, what we need is a regime change. We need to get these old ass 80-year-old, 90-year-old oligarchs and one percenters out of power, and we need to create a system or make this system work for the people like it should.
Mm,
That's why I said when you came up, I said this is the boring sector. We don't do names, we don't do like these things because I feel like division and separation is the tactics they use on us as Americans. Like when I watched two of my buddies, I got a lot of veteran friends online, and one was talking about him, this 47 wearing a hat to the what do you call that when the soldiers come home and they've passed away, that ceremony.
yeah.
And then the other one said my other platoon mate attacked him and said, well, you ain't never been to combat. And he says, what did
Mm,
me going to combat has to do with anything? And then they start going back and forth, and I jumped in. I said, well, check this out. I said, my problem is the man had on a hat that he sells that is made in China and that he sells at the White House. So that's my problem right there. That's like me showing up with a t-shirt on that I produce, and I'm sitting there talking about, I'm at Jesse Jackson funeral with this t-shirt that I sell. First of all, I should be in a suit. I shouldn't have the t-shirt on. But then these same people lost their mind when Joe Biden just peeked at his watch during one of those ceremonies. They lost their mind. Or Obama is an elitist because he wore a tan suit or he put mustard on his hot dog. So it's the extreme hypocrisy. I think as a whole that we as a nation are seriously getting tired. Because see, when you can be on one side of the coin, you can call yourself a Democrat, Republican, left, right, conservative, liberal, whatever title that a person wants to take on. I don't take on none of those titles because I know that's a trap. I'm more so interested in why are my gas prices high? Why are my food prices up? Why we can't eat out as much anymore because everything is so damn expensive? Why are we, and I
mm,
just found out this year, why are we in the middle, this country leadership in the middle of an international SA network, and yet that's not why isn't all media reporting on this? Why aren't they on it every day? Why isn't it in a 24-hour news cycle? And the reason why it's not is because these people, these leaders have bought up all the media.
No,
So
fact.
now getting to the good side of YouTube, there are a lot of independent media sources here where you can hopefully get a lot of the facts on things, because back in the day, we used to have 3 major networks, CBS, NBC, ABC, and we all had something called the Fair and Balanced Reporting Act, where news stations were bound to report both sides of the story. That's why you see like these talk show hosts get in trouble if they have on a politician, and they have this rule, the FCC, where they have to get equal time to the other politician. So we used
So
to have checks and
let me ask you
balances.
another question. I want to pick your brain for another one.
Oh,
Okay, we in the sector, right? And
No,
some people complain about other people getting this, or you on government assistant and all that, making fun of them. The dude I was watching. He got banned. He got his channel taken down because he was talking about the other people getting all the benefits, and the taxpayers is paying for that. I don't want to mention the other people's names
of
because
course
we on
not.
YouTube.
You already said
You know
sector,
what I
but
mean?
we're
So
gonna just
I was
smooth
watching his
past that.
video, and there was like, well, they took his video down because he was like, yo, yeah, people getting all these benefits and all this and all that. Like, yo, shit was crazy. Shit
So
was crazy.
is that a
What you think about that?
oh, okay. I was gonna say, well, I'm waiting for the
Oh,
interrogative
hold on. Let
of
me
the
let me make
question.
sure you can hear me because I can't hear you.
I can hear you perfectly. So,
so
hey,
can I?
Steph, I think I, I really, I would have needed a follow up question to clarify
My
what he's asking. If he's asking me, what do I think about a person? Okay, hey, Mikey, I need more information on that. Is the is the individual disparaging people who get benefits? Are they putting them down? Are they,
Yeah, yeah. You can
or
hear me?
yeah, or were they just reporting that people get benefits? Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh,
Is
okay,
it,
okay, okay.
are
Nah,
they,
cause my man, he's exposed what the other people was doing, right? So he was like, oh yeah, people getting all these benefits and all that and everything. And a couple of days later, they took his channel down.
so what was
Cause
he
he
saying about the people getting benefits? They were wrong for getting benefits, or
nah,
they were committing fraud, or
nah, they ain't doing none of that. Basically, he was like, you know,
just
New
trying to
York.
humiliate them by implying they're poor or what?
Nah, basically he was like New York taxpayers are paying for the other people just for being lazy.
oh, okay, okay, I get it.
Yeah, that's kind of
I
what I'm
get
Oh
it.
saying.
shit!
Yeah, it was
Hold on,
just a
cause damn,
humiliation.
every time, hold on, cause every time when somebody talks, my mic gives out. Like
Mm,
it's weird how this StreamYard works. It's just weird.
mm,
Hold on.
interesting. So,
I was
so
going to ask you, Bombay, if I could while we're waiting on Mikey. I want to go back to your point where you were saying your friends were kind of arguing about, um, 47 not taking his head off, and one said to the other, like, you didn't go to combat. Um, you know who also didn't go to combat?
It's crazy.
yep, yep, old
Donald
Bone Spurs himself.
47. Yeah, didn't go to combat.
Yep,
um, the war criminal who the last war criminal we had in office in the 2000s, the early 2000s, also did not go to combat, although he was a member of the Texas Air National Guard. He did not see combat, even though he could have. He was of the right age to go to Vietnam. He did not.
ex-
Um, Ronald, his father did see was part of the greatest generation and fought in Europe in World War II. Ronald Reagan was given the rank of captain and quote unquote served his country during World War II by making patriotic movies. By making patriotic movies because he was an actor by profession, so he made patriotic movies. And then after that, before leading up to Reagan, Jimmy Carter was in combat because they were all that age, right? So they were all um, of the age to have served in the Second World War. So I mean, this is kind of the thing that I think it bothered me a lot when 47 said, and I think correct me if he did not say this, but for what I understand, he did say that this is what they signed up for, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. He said
Right.
they knew. How did you know that? That's exactly what he wrote. He said they knew when they went in what they're signing up for. And then my
Right.
buddy answered back. He said they did not sign up to go to a BS war that somebody started on behalf of another country. That's not what they
Okay.
signed up for, or to be sacrificed or thrown away. You
And
know,
and I think at least from what I understand, although I have not been in the service myself, every man in my family for generations back has been, and you swear to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the land, and it is not the law of the land, nor is it in the Constitution. In fact, it's quite the opposite. That we do not attack foreign nations, um, other nation states, at the whim of the president. We don't do that. That is
exactly.
explicitly unconstitutional. So no, they did not sign up for that. It's they did not sign up to carry out a essentially an extrajudicial assassination is how it began, and then whatever the end goal is. I don't know if it's occupation or whatever regime change. I don't know what we're trying to do, but it was not. Even George W. Bush, even though he was a international war criminal, he even got an authorization of force to do what he did, the use of force, right? He made
Yeah,
it up. He totally made it up. It never been used before. It hasn't been used since. But even he saw that in order to make this all kind of look okay, he needed some paperwork. This dude is just like, nah, I told you to do it. You did it. And what? What are you going to do? Is somebody going to stop me? Yeah, and that's sort of his attitude towards the whole thing. And that's quite not what they signed up for because it's explicitly against everything we have in the books, our history of military law, our history of international relations. This is contrary to all of that, even the bad stuff.
Nah, but
Even the bad stuff.
um,
yes.
the people I was gonna name, it starts with a J, it ends up with a
Nah,
W.
nah. We don't need to.
Now,
Nah,
Okay,
nah. We don't.
okay.
Yeah, we don't. We don't. Yeah, it's your subject is sound. You don't need. You don't even need to put a name on it.
All right, all
So
right. So so
I,
so you
I
so
would
you know what
say
I mean, right?
I know exactly what you mean. So my answer to that, because y'all heard me say earlier how the welfare state coming into existence caused us a lot of harm as a community, in my opinion. But I also see the necessity for social programs. I would say to the individual, I say it's funny how, like, I noticed that, like, whenever I would talk about reparations, all of my veteran buddies on the right, who's gonna pay for that? Where are we gonna get the money? But it's never where we're gonna get the money to feed the military industrial complex several $1 trillion mission that never ends, right? So to the people that are worrying about those getting food stamps or the young girl with the bonnet on that's got the cart full of shrimp, man, that is you're talking about, like, out of the national budget, like that's like less than 1%. You know what I'm saying? So my mind's not focused on that. Why aren't they focusing on these large oil conglomerates that get government subsidies, which is a form of socialism? They also don't like the word socialism. So they don't like social services. So instead of focusing on somebody that's getting food stamps or somebody that you want to see, to me, it's like it's an excuse to label and point fingers and call people and judge. I would say this to anybody that's getting food stamps or housing benefits. I kind of feel sorry for you in a way because it's not a whole lot of money. It's not like you're getting rich doing that. And
But can I say
it
this?
keeps you
Can I
from okay,
can,
one second. It keeps you
uh,
from taking advantage of things. There's a situation now within my own peoples I can't really speak on, I've seen two of my family members come into a large amount of money they couldn't accept because they were in government programs. So like I said, there's a downside to that. But the whole point, this is how I feel, Mikey, and I'm gonna end it.
Mhm.
This is how I feel about it. I feel like anytime you open your mouth, right, to talk about something, and the whole purpose of what you're about to say is to disparage, make somebody else feel bad, put them down, then all it is to me is like a serious ego trip. I believe, in those three gates, is what I'm about to say true? Is what I'm about to say kind? And if what I'm about to say isn't necessary, if you pass those three, then go ahead and let it rip. But that was my whole point I made earlier when I said BlackTube, the vast majority of it is all about people who feel bad who need to make other people feel worse. And I'm gonna stand on that. And I'm gonna keep standing. So it don't matter if you an individual and you got a nice big house and 3 cars and all these trinkets, which by the way, if like I know in 100 years it won't exist, or you won't even be here anyway. So there's something else more to living than just having a bunch of materials and trinkets. Trust me, I know. You know what I'm saying? But to wake up and go through your day, whereas I gotta make people feel bad. And then, like I told you, last thing, I know I said last thing 3 last things ago. And like I told you, you get a group of people together, they make it seem like it's okay to be that way because it's 20 of us doing it. Like 20 of us, let's all jump on Mikey and beat him up. But it's 20 of us, so it's okay. But no, it's another 80 of us that says, nah, the 20, it ain't okay. It's just YouTube. It's just Facebook. It's just Twitter. Nah, it's not that. It's like at the end of the day, like I asked Stephanie earlier, I said, are we part of the problem when we do these things here? Are we fueling the problems with our society and the kids being the adults that we are, the so-called elders we're supposed to be? So yeah, I'm gonna say, yeah, we're a part of the problem. But go ahead, Mikey, you were saying?
Nah, so I was watching my man, and he was talking about the, how those people get the benefits, and then when it comes to black people and Hispanics, other people got a problem. They call them lazy and all this and all that, but you can't say that to them other people who's getting the same thing. You can't say that to them. I noticed
Oh,
that.
oh yeah, that's a part of the divisive tactic. I know what you're saying. Like when, let's say if it's a group of white folks and they're saying, well, these black people are welfare queens, right?
Hmm.
Whereas though the majority of people on welfare are white. But see, that's the whole thing. Here's the question. This is where the wisdom comes in. The wisdom should come in to say, why does that matter? And who told you that? And who has you focused on that? Again, the 1% gave you a cookie, right? And they
Hmm.
got you looking at the crumbs of the person that lives across the street. Focus, look at his
Mm-hmm.
crumbs, man. Why does he have so many crumbs? Hey, looks like he's gonna want part of your cookie. But meanwhile, they got a whole damn bakery factory going on. They
But
got
which
millions
kind
of
of
cookies.
cookie? But which kind
So
of
so
cookie?
so when you hear that type of
This
rhetoric,
there's
you
different
know,
kinds of cookie.
yeah, when you hear that type of rhetoric, that's more that divisiveness, like even down to black and white. See, when I start talking like this, I start pissing people off. This is when I lose membership. I don't care. I have a
Nah,
family.
nah, cause yo,
My kids are my members, not YouTube.
no
So
facts.
so when
Cause this what happened.
people
They took the dude's channel down for because he exposed the other people what they was doing, and they took his whole channel down on some
that's
quick
funny.
shit.
I
Cause
think you're
he
making it your point more clear now. So are you saying that the guy, the individual with the channel was making a comparison between whites and minorities on welfare or
nah,
welfare
like
people in general?
like he was showing how those other people was getting the same benefits, but like you know what I mean? Like they was getting the same benefits, whatever, whatever. But when it comes to black people, it's like, oh, y'all being lazy, but you can't say that to the other people. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And they took his channel down for that because he exposed what they was doing.
I yeah, I hear a lot of people say that. Like I used to hear a lot of over in over in the conscious side of BlackTube, they thrive on conspiracy theories. Like my channel was putting out so much wisdom and truth that YouTube came and snatched it down. Man, YouTube, nah, they ain't you. It's nothing on here you can say. Cause see, here's the thing: the masses are asleep. They got you asleep. They got you arguing black and white. They got you arguing poor people versus poor people. They got you Democrats, Republicans, left, right, and all these things. They got you divided up so bad that it's nothing you can say. Like, I love this one, my conspiracy folks, when they say, like, it's a billboard and it's got, see that slogan right there? What it really means is this. So there's this secret society, this Illuminati that's putting out they're putting out their secrets for the whole public to see, you know, whatever. I don't subscribe to that. I just know that anything that is divisive is counterproductive, you know. So it's not even about who are the most people on welfare. It's more so it creates an argument or another distraction. Where instead of us arguing about who's on welfare, let's talk about how the 5 top corporations in this country have more working people on welfare. Let's see, they're not talking about that. Why are working people on needing welfare? How are you the richest family in America, but 40% of your employees need public assistance? How is that? That's where the conversation should be. But see, those rich families will have you on your channel arguing about I'm really gonna ride out to Dundalk, Maryland, right on the east side, and argue with some white women or men that's on welfare, and I'm on welfare too. Like, well, you get more stamps than me, so you're worse off than me. No, my question is, hey, Mr. and Mrs. White Man, why are me and you on welfare? Why we can't afford a living wage? That should be the question. But see, the minute I tell you what, you want your channel took, start bringing poor white people and poor Hispanics and Asians. Start bringing poor people together and unifying them. Your channel will be gone in half a millisecond. See, that's what happened with the Black Panthers. See, if you start a hate group if you start a hate channel where you become some right-wing conservative and you just tee off on black people all day and other minorities, your channel will thrive. It'll stay up forever. But if you start saying, hey, Mr. White person or Asian person or these people, have you ever thought that we all getting screwed? And you start talking that message, you up out of here. You were saying, Stephanie?
If you think about it, when you are saying, like, why is the richest person, let's just be clear, why is the trillionaire, the first trillionaire to ever live, why is his employees, a lot of whom live right here in where I live in Austin, Texas, that he moved the plant out here, why do they at their salaries qualify for public assistance? Not all of them, sure. Some of them make big money, but a lot of them that are working on the production lines, why do they qualify for public assistance? And if they don't qualify for public assistance, why are they still making an amount that they wish they were on public assistance, because they're having to stretch to make ends meet? And if you think about that, like, so let's just take the ones that do qualify for public assistance, right? Let's say they're on their children are on Medicare or Medicaid or CHIP we have here, right? CHIP. That is a form of welfare to the trillionaire, because the government's paying for his employees to get assistance to get their children's health care paid for, because he won't. So we are subsidizing his employees, and so we're essentially subsidizing him. We're allowing him to get richer because he's not paying his employees enough, or he's not providing the kind of healthcare that they need, right? And he's leaving them to hang out to dry, but we, as the taxpayers, are picking up the tab for that. So he's on welfare, essentially.
Exactly. You know what? You have a lot of insight into things, because sometimes you think of the points. Me and Stephanie's doing a show together, y'all. Get ready, stay tuned. You think of the points that I have in the back of my mind that I forget about, and that's exactly what it is. It's like, again, when I talk about if I say, man, what about Medicare for all, like medical for all, and then my conservative buddies yell out, that's socialism, and I say, well, like what you just said, if this man is a trillionaire, and let's say his national payout for his employees, annual payout is $100 million, but then somehow he has 40% of his employees on welfare, guess what? He just saved another $15 million. He puts that in his pocket. Or
At the taxpayer's expense.
Exactly. So that's socialism again. There should be no one working and I was going to say working a full-time job, but to be honest with you, they don't even allow them work full-time, so they don't have to give them any benefits.
Yep.
It's, again, like I said, y'all, I'm going to say it again. Slavery did not end in 1865. It just changed forms, and they added a lot of different colors to put on the plantation. And this is where we need to be at. This is where we need to wake up and start understanding and coming together as unifying. So no more, for me, I'm not engaging in a whole, I don't want to sit on here and yell and scream at people back and forth about some nonsense, running. I mean, you're dead. If you're literally on here yelling about something from 5 years ago and it's on, you got the thing on repeat, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're just wasting time. That's why I don't go live a lot, because I feel like if I'm going to spend an hour and a half out of my day, I'm pretty sure it's something I could be doing in this house. Like, I got some shelves to fix, I'm sure it's something I could be doing. But if you're going to come on here just for that, and while we say it's entertaining, I'm pretty sure when they fed Christians to the lions in the Coliseum, that was entertainment too. But shit, it wasn't right. It was still murder and gore. But again, we got to ask ourselves. But hey, I leave it to what everybody wants to do with their life. They can do. Over here in the boring sector, these are things that we talk about. You know what I'm saying? We got a strong 12 in attendance, not including the people on the panel. You know what I'm saying? So we rolling. But yeah, when you start to look at that, that's where your focus should be, instead of worrying about, am I worrying about, let me tell you something. When Taekwondo Denasia is filling up her shopping cart with the shrimp and the crab meat and all that, and she got some stamps, guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna tap on the shoulder and say, hey, shorty, 50 cents on the dollar. Let me get like 100. Let me get 100. I know, because she needs some cash. Let me get 100. Right. Guess what?
Right.
Now I got $300 worth of food in my car. I just got $100 off. I'm doing good. I caught a sale. That's where I'm at with it. Ain't no shame. You know what I mean? So I'm not focusing on the girl with all the snacks, and now they talking about, we got to make a new bill so they can't buy Doritos. They can only buy healthy things. Who cares? The system is not designed for her kids to be healthy. The system is designed for them to be hopped up on carbohydrates, sugar, and all kind of chemicals, because we don't really care about it. We want them to be hyperactive. So they're not going to tell her she can only buy a salad. No, man, that's not going to happen. That's too much focus on that. I don't care about Taekwondo Denasia and them getting the extra $5 million in subsidies. I want to know where that $500 million is going, to like this lady producing a commercial advertisement. You know what I mean? So.
And think about what they would do if they saw her with a basket full of, shrimp. Is shrimp more healthy than the Doritos? Yes, it is. So why are you mad? Why are you mad? You want her to buy healthy stuff, but then you don't want to pay for it. So you're putting her in a position where you're telling her she needs to buy healthy stuff, but then you're not giving her the money to buy the healthy stuff. You don't want her, you want to cut it when she is trying to buy the healthy stuff because it's too expensive. So which one is it? The Doritos or the shrimp? Y'all make up your mind.
Chief Z said that's called the barter system. Yes, going back to the roots.
Right.
The barter system. Indeed.
If she had a cart full of salad, look at that. Like, you don't want to see her with a cart full of shrimp. You also don't want to see her with a cart full of Doritos. So which one is it? Make it make sense.
Yep. I'm not looking at her cart.
Exactly. It ain't none of my business.
I'm not looking at her cart. I'm looking at why we are one medical emergency away from bankruptcy. That's what keeps me up at night. Go ahead and get sick one good time and watch what happens. I'm looking at the fact that, our bank accounts don't have a rolling balance. We the average person can't handle a $500 emergency. These are things that I'm worried about. That girl, no matter how much shrimp, she could fill that cart up with shrimp. It's not going to change the fact. It's not going to change the fact Go ahead and get a little bit of cancer and watch what happens.
Right.
You're done. And trust me, I've seen people, and I'm not going to speak too much in the details. I've seen people, you know, in some of the business I'm in, I've seen people with these emergencies. I've seen the corporations cut them loose, put them out the pasture. They, you know, they leave from work. First of all, they hound them like, you still out? You still out? When you coming back? When you coming back? And they force them to come back, and the doctor says they can't lift over 20 pounds. You know what they do? They terminate them. Now, in a country like Germany, don't quite work like that because, you know, like I said, in Germany, I go get a root canal, it might be $8. I get my appendix out, it's $42. Like, yo, I'm not gonna die, you know, if I get some medical work done. And over there, they have like a mandatory 30 days you got to take off each year. They're not like telling pregnant women you got to get back in 2 weeks. You know, again, y'all, it's like, to me, it reminds us of that. We're like frogs in that pot of water. I think somewhere somebody is diabolical and they have a formula they're cranking up. How much can we squeeze people with this stuff? But it's so bad now that, believe it or not, some of my buddies, my VA buddies on the right, they're actually starting to question the war stuff. They talking about this war now, and they could only say, what about Biden, so many times. Now, the corruption that's going on now, they have no one to compare it to. They can't say, well, Obama, they have no past reference. This is the worst administration of all time, and probably will be for all time. I would dare say in this sector of the galaxy, if there's any other civilizations with democracies, this has got to be the worst, you know. But again, let's keep on focusing on defending. And I tell them all the time, I say, yo, you're sitting here defending a billionaire. Like, it's funny how I'm gonna keep saying that girl with the crab meat in her cart. We're worried about him, but yet we have somebody that came to power and like made a quick $4 billion as soon as they got in office. I'm like, come on, that's where my mind is. He got $4 billion, but yet my property tax just went up. And don't even get me started on the mayor of this city that now got his hand in the pot, and then he gonna cry about racism. I'm so tired of corrupt people and the things they're doing. You know, it's sickening. I'm this close to running for office myself. Mikey, you gonna run for office in New York? I can see you on the city council, Mikey. Well, when you get done with that honey bun, you can answer that question. Mike said they worried about the people. Go ahead, Steph.
So, I checked, I'm looking at something right now that Congress put out. Let's see what year is this. It's post-pandemic, so it's pretty recent. Let's see, what year is this? I can't tell. It's the current Congress. Okay, that was from 2024. Okay. It's sources of federal funding for healthcare facilities. So even private hospitals outside of direct payments for Medicare and Medicaid recipients, there's a lot of money that goes into private hospitals. And set aside public hospitals, even the private hospitals get money from the government because of the burden they bear for taking care of people in acute emergencies, right? That don't have any sorts of healthcare. Insurance, or any sort of what do you call that? Healthcare coverage. They don't have any coverage, right? And so hospitals end up doing what for people that are in that position? They quote unquote write it off, right? They forgive it because they know that they can't do anything to actually get that money, right? But how do they do that without closing down? The government comes in and gives them an infusion of like just general Medicare, Medicaid money, or they might give them a grant to stay open depending on where they are. There's a lot of money that the federal government's already, and the state government and local government, right, are pouring into these hospitals. And we could do that in a way that actually made sense by covering everyone or giving people an option. Like here in Texas, we didn't take the Medicare expansion. Ridiculous. We still have people out here who have nothing and no coverage whatsoever. And we have a very, very limited Medicare, Medicaid, like me. If I didn't have any coverage, I would not qualify for any sort of public healthcare coverage because I'm a single woman with no kids, right? So I don't qualify, no matter
So
my
let
income.
so let me say this, right? So the other people, right? You know, his name is Tyler. You ever heard of Tyler? He's a content creator, Tyler. So like he was saying, like the government and whatever's paying for these people, you know, and they having 10 to 15 kids. You know what I mean? But then when it comes to a black person, it's a problem having 10 to 15 kids. But it's okay for them to have 10, 15 kids. Like that shit's a mind boggling. You think so?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, because you
But
know, people was complaining, right? This is in general. Oh, a black person having so much kids.
I can't hear him all of a sudden.
I'm still here. 1 second.
Okay.
And to get government assistance and all that. That shit is mind boggling to me. I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
think kind of what I was trying to say is that regardless of how we view it, we're the taxpayers are picking up a lot of the tab for people who don't have any coverage. We're doing it
yes,
anyway. We're doing it
yep,
anyway, so why not do it in a way that makes sense? That's actually like preventative and full coverage, instead of just like emergencies or pregnancy or, the sort of piecemeal stuff we do now, or just, using the emergency room as your primary health care, which a lot of people end up having to do. And instead of trying to find a way to force employers to do it because they're not going to, they'll find every single way to not cover their employees, right? And then we end up subsidizing their greed. Let's, redirect the money because we're spending it anyway.
exactly. You know, Lorna she made a couple good points. Like she says, I remember when I lived in the US, you would always get double coupons on junk Coca-Cola chips. Exactly. Cheap foods to kill yourself. But this one, in Canada, it's 1 year paid maternity leave divided between parents. So that means literally if you have a baby, what now I don't know if she means the parents share the 1 year or the parents each get a year. Because that would be excellent. That means basically your baby would be 2 years old by the time it had to go to any type of daycare situation, which would give you plenty of time to get yourself together. But like I said, in Canada, a lot of the government works for the people. Now there are some things where you will see Canadians drive. Some of the prenatal stuff is not covered, so they'll drive over into Michigan and have the baby. That's the flip side of that. But hey, look, I'll take the maternity leave because I have a daughter going through that now, where it's like they get a few weeks and then it's like they both got to go back, and then you got to give your infant over to either a relative or a stranger. A U.S. doctor that moved to Canada said U.S. insurance was charged $500 for a doctor visit. Out of that, he was only getting $100 while the insurance company took $400. See, that is ridiculous. If the doctor was getting the majority, it would make sense because he's the professional. Why are these corporate entities like literally bleeding us to death, almost figuratively as well? So these are a lot of things I tell people. So that's where I say people should keep their focus. Like, stop looking at, like I say, taekwondo with the shrimp in the cart, like looking at the crumbs and all these things, and redirect and refocus, and ask your and just be aware, be aware. It's okay to come on to social media and have fun. It's okay, to deal in your antics sometimes, but definitely educate yourself and become part of the solution. Become part of the system that, at the very least, we always say, what can we do? Well, you know what? You can make people aware. You can create a channel that deals in independent news sourcing. There are things that we can do. other than disparaging each other because one of us has more materials than the other, or one of us are more socially developed than the other, or we have more people that love us than you do. I got more people that love me than people that love you, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Again, we're getting older. You're crossing into a half a century. It's time to, hey, if you can't, not just change your message, but maybe just balance it out, with some of the other stuff, or not. Just do you. That's what I'm gonna say at the end of the week, And notice I didn't say, well, when I say this, people are gonna call me. You know what? I don't care where I get called. I'm here. This is the boring sector. This is what we do. In conclusion, though, as far as the youth I was talking about earlier, we got to get them more into life skills and social development programs designed to help these kids and adolescents manage anger, resolve conflict, and develop the necessary social skills to solve problems. This is where you come in at. This is where you elders, you old people that are on here, that you're the opposite of that. You're not managing your anger. You're not able to resolve conflicts. You don't have the necessary social skills to solve the problems. So when you look out your window and you complain about these children, well, it's no wonder they are the way they are. Look who's in charge of them. You're doing it, so they're doing it. You know what I mean? These kids they didn't come from, the stork didn't just drop them off in the cabbage patch. They literally are coming out of these homes. And sometimes it's your home, So a lot, man, they need the guidance. Because see, here's the thing. If you don't invest in them now, right? And you don't put into them now, then eventually you're going to go past eldership. You're going to be an old person, and they're going to be running things. And where does that leave you? Any final words from you folks before we wrap it up?
I would say that I think I disagree with your assessment that things are. I'm sorry, I just got a text. That there's that what we're talking about is socialism. I think when corporations are receiving money to continue to do what they do and to continue to help people get richer, the poor get poorer, that's another ism, but it's not socialism. So, but yeah, that's all I wanted to say. So I'm gonna drop down.
Okay. Steph, I don't know if you dropped off intentionally. Mike, any final words before you depart? Well, well, if that's the case, I'll go ahead and send you back to where you're going. Hey, and Lorna, you know what? Man, it seems like the Canadians got a lot of things right. And it's not just Canada, y'all. It's a lot of other countries that are on point with a lot of things that they have going. And my question is, I keep looking around. Why can't we have that here? Well, they call it Obamacare, so it has his name on it. We can't do it. We're going to repeal and replace. By the way, whatever happened to repeal and replace? What do they got other than the big dumbass bill that they made to kind of pull away to basically not only, hell, they making it so bad you don't even have to wait for a medical emergency to go into bankruptcy. They're going to make the insurance impossible, where if you you cut yourself, you're going to be in trouble. So these are some of the things, man, that we talk about over here, these boring topics. And y'all do know when I say boring, I'm being completely sarcastic. There's nothing boring about what we do in this network. We have these adult conversations that you might have wanted to have, but just couldn't do it where you were. And now you're here. I appreciate everybody that came through, especially Miss Williams, contributing and bringing a lot of good points. Lawyers, they get based on the risk taken. And risk removes or protected from the customer directly. Wow. Hey, interesting point. See, like I said, man, when you're building, you can learn something new every day. Josie, welcome. So, you learn something every day. And that's what this is about, man. This is about just building. Like I said, I had a little bit of time. I don't know how long I've been at it, but look at me as I stall uncomfortably to get us into the end of the show. And let me see here. There was there's more comments. Go check out my last song. Oh, no doubt. Oh, I gotta check that out. Look at Rob B making music now. All right, let me find out. I need a song with Rob B on it. You know, I never got a vocal clip from her. You know, I'm gonna get her to sing something on the next one. Then it's gonna be a whole song like D7. We have our problems up here in Canada, high price of internet and groceries, but the government is more family oriented. Hey, I can get with that. And we have high price in groceries here. And nobody don't give a F about families in the US. All right, brother of a certain age. Oh, you're on iTunes. Okay, cool. So yeah, no doubt, man. I want to thank everybody for coming through, man. And I really appreciate it. And thank you for, you know, sitting here through this boring topic and keeping me at a steady 11. I really appreciate you. Thank you. I leave you with the words of peace and tranquility. Oh, actually, I can do this automated. Namaste.